The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this early today, Wednesday. We're planning to do the show at 5 p.m. Pacific, but something came up. Been invited to an event I couldn't say no to, didn't want to say no to, so I decided to do the show a little early. I would have shifted it to tomorrow, but I'm flying tomorrow. Yes, I get on an airplane. I'm flying tomorrow. I'm going to Connecticut to do my a live event in Connecticut. That'll be the first live event in front of actual, real, three-dimensional people that I will do, or that I will have done since March. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I fly out to Connecticut on Thursday, fly back to California on Friday, and then fly to Puerto Rico next week. So I didn't have time to do a show tomorrow or Friday. So I figured I'd do one early today. So yeah, thank you all for joining me. I know many of you who are live were not expecting this, and don't know how convenient this is for you. So thank you for being here. And if Jason is here. Jason's always here, and Jason's already got a $19.99 question. I don't know if does that qualify for the 20% for the $20 rule. I don't know. Anyway, yes, we'll get to that, I'm sure, in the next few minutes. All right, today we are going to cover a couple of topics, 2 videos. I've got 2 videos for you. First topic is going to be antitrust, big tech, but particularly Microsoft, and a little bit of a look back on the Microsoft case, and I've got a video of Bill Gates talking about, a short video of Bill Gates talking about it, which is, I think, a video that's very revealing and sad in many respects, but very revealing just that he did, I think yesterday. So a very recent video. Interview he was on CNBC, maybe even today. And then video stuttering. Yeah, I'm sorry. Nothing I can do about it. Hopefully it'll go away. It's probably just bandwidth issues right now. Let me just make sure that I'm not overloading anything. Let me just do this. Let's do that. Yeah, hopefully to smooth out in a little bit. I have no idea. Could be bandwidth issues because it's a cable provider. It's very sensitive to the number of people on the cable using the web, and bandwidth fluctuates quite a bit during the day. So audio is good though. Cool. That's what matters. Looking at me is not anybody's highlight anyway. Hopefully you're here for what I have to say. Hey, we got somebody from Amsterdam. Stephen asked, what am I lecturing on when I travel to Connecticut? So it's a 9-month program in Connecticut. There's also a similar program in Denver, and I lecture in both of them. The program is basically on, I'd say, it's a training program. It's a program to train people to be intellectual activists, particularly political activists. Many of the people in this program ultimately become politicians, usually at the local level. Sometimes they actually get up to the state and federal level. But these are people who want to be engaged in political activism, and it trains them. The program itself is a 9-month program. It's called Leadership Program of the Rockies. Is the version in Colorado. The version in Connecticut, I forget right now the name of it, but it's basically the same program in both places, run by the people who launched Leadership Program of the Rockies. And the idea is it's a 9-month program. They spend one Friday, the whole day, once a month for 9 months at the program. And basically they have lectures from morning till evening on the founding principles, on capitalist solutions to problems, on capitalism, on what capitalism is, There's one day that's foreign policy. So it's basically a free market, pro-founding fathers principles program. 60 or 70 attendees. They pay quite a bit of money to attend. The screen. So a lot of people apply for this program. Very few actually let in to the program. So very exclusive program, very high quality, interesting people, not objectivists, not even libertarians or purely free market types. Mostly, I'd say conservatives. Most of the people coming into the program are conservatives, right of center, some of them pretty out there conservative, a lot of religious conservatives, a lot of Trump supporters. And then I think during the program, they're exposed to ideas about the founding principles, about the founding fathers, about capitalism, about free markets that they've never heard before. And it's really challenging for them. It's really, really hard for them. And many of them, don't necessarily accept, but many of them do. And it certainly has a profound impact on moving them a little bit closer to better ideas. And I do, these days I do 2 talks a year for each one of the programs. I do the first one is what is capitalism? The second one is the morality of capitalism. So the one I'll be doing tomorrow on Friday is what is capitalism, and then I'll be back in Connecticut in December to talk to them about the morality of capitalism. And it's the morality of capitalism that really gets their head spinning, because it's just not. They're not used to even thinking about these things. They're not used to thinking in terms of egoism. They don't know what to make of egoism, and that's where religion comes up, and their objections to what I'm saying based on religion. So it becomes really interesting. It's really valuable. A number of objectivists from the Colorado area have gone through the program. And I think benefited from it. They exposed a lot of good thinkers, a lot of good people. I mean, the program, not everybody in the program I agree with. They're not, obviously not all the speakers are objectivists, but like in foreign policy, Ilan Journo often goes out there and speaks. Tara Smith has spoken there, Brad Thompson has spoken there. So we've had a variety of objectivist speakers at the program. But anyway, I enjoyed it a lot, and it's incredibly valuable. Jason asks, would you rather retire in Boca Raton, Florida, Scottsdale, Arizona, or Laguna Beach, California? I mean, it really depends on my tax status. So I wouldn't come to California if I'm getting taxable income. I'd prefer Florida or Arizona. If I had to choose between Florida and Arizona, I don't know these days, because in the past, I would have said I wouldn't go to Florida because it's too humid, but now I live in Puerto Rico, so I'm getting used to humidity, and I worry that Scottsdale, Arizona would be too dry for me. But Scottsdale is beautiful. I mean, if I had a choice, ideally, if you put taxes aside, California, no doubt. California is the best weather, most pleasant place. It's just a great place to live. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's clean. It's modern. It's just expensive, and taxes are ridiculous. Second, I would say Scottsdale, Arizona, in terms of beauty and quality of life, and then I would say Florida. But I'm in Puerto Rico for the foreseeable future. Okay, one more super chat. Let's see. Shouldn't it be considered child abuse to teach young children reality doesn't exist in their minds, incapable of knowing anything? And, in a sense, unfortunately, but not unfortunately, in reality, no. Child abuse has to be physical. If once you get into what ideas are legitimate and what ideas are not, and having the state determine that, and say certain ideas of child abuse slip, very, very dangerous. And what is the limit? Should we say altruism, teaching children altruism? Then are we going to mandate the children study objectivism? And there's no end to that. So no, the government should not be in the business of ideas. There's a case to be made that if you don't teach the kids the basic, if you lock them in a closet somewhere and they're not exposed to anything, they can't even read and write, they can't speak or whatever, then that's child abuse. But in terms of specific ideas, no, the government should not intervene, even though we know it is abusive, right? But it's not child abuse to the point where the government should step in. Ideas are not the realm of government. Government is not involved in the realm of ideas. And you're seeing right now when the government gets involved in ideas, the consequences. Government schools, government funding of universities, government funding of science, government, and then, of course, what the government actually does. Okay, last quick super chat question. What's the difference between being brilliant and being a genius? What's the difference between ignoring and evading? The second one's easier for me. I'm not sure what the difference is between brilliant and genius. I don't really know. I think genius maybe is a higher standard. Maybe it's more. I'm not sure. Genius might be related to the raw power that you have. Brilliant might more be related to your use of it. I'd have to think it through what's the actual technical difference between the two, and I can't right now look at a dictionary to see what the dictionary definition of the two would be. In my mind, I reserve genius to very, very few people. Maybe genius is just more than brilliant. Brilliant is maybe one category beneath genius, but on the same scale. And both require not only the raw horsepower, but also its manifestation, the use of it, the effective use of it. And then ignoring and evading. I think ignoring is, I decided, I thought about it, even if it was very quickly. I acknowledged its existence and decided it wasn't relevant, or decided that it wasn't a factor. Evading is, I either didn't even look, or I looked, knew it was a factor, knew it was important, knew it was relevant, and chose not to take it into account. So ignoring is, okay, that's fine. I'm going to ignore it because I don't think it's important. Evading is, I know it's important. At some level, I know it's important. Maybe I'm avoiding even thinking about it because I know at some level it's important. And I've chosen to ignore it even knowing it's important. Knowing it's relevant. Knowing I should look. So that's the difference. One is moral. One's immoral. Evading is immoral. Ignoring is moral and rational or not. It could be wrong. That is, it could be a mistake. But it's not an issue of morality. It's more an issue of, I ignored that. I shouldn't have. It was actually important. Versus, I ignored that. Oh, shit, I knew I should have taken it into account. But I didn't because it was uncomfortable to do it. All right, that's the definition. All right, let's see. I just need to do something here on the computer because my computer's behaving weirdly. Maybe that's related. It's probably related to the fact that that you're having a hard time with a video. Let me do that as well. Maybe the video will get better now. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, Super Chat. As you know, I take Super Chat questions on any topic you want, but my emphasis is on the topic that we are discussing. That would be the preference. But if you are going to be off topic, then the more dollars you put on the question, the more likely it is for me to answer it. And, as most of you know, Super Chat has become a significant source of revenue for the Iran Book Show. You guys have been phenomenally generous over the last few months. Please keep it up. So those of you who can and want to support the show through the Super Chat, really appreciate it. Some of the whales out there that do hundreds of dollars and sometimes more than hundreds of dollars on the Super Chat, please don't stop. I value it, I appreciate it, and it helps keep this show this show going. My sincere appreciation for all of you, and of course those of you who contribute on a monthly basis at YourOnBookShow.com/support, on Patreon, on Subscribestar. Thank you all for doing so. Again, it makes the show possible, and it keeps it allows it to keep going, and hopefully over time to get better at a variety of different things. All right. Let us talk about antitrust. It's timely right now because, of course, right now both Republicans and Democrats are seriously contemplating to go after and to break up and to prosecute big tech. There's been the House, I think, has formally investigated big tech and has decided to formally, start a process by which they will indeed go after big tech and break it apart. We'll see. Whoops, what is going on here? Microsoft products. I'm having problem with Microsoft products here. Don't do that. Okay. So big tech is about to be broken up or about to be regulated or something else might happen to it. It's a huge political issue. It's a huge issue no matter who gets elected, because this is one of those few issues that where there is a unanimity about the need to do something about big tech. The Republicans and Democrats both support doing something about big tech. So we're likely to see some kind of antitrust action against the big tech companies, and it's going to be an issue in the next administration, no matter who is president and no matter who controls the Senate and the House. And I saw this video today of Bill Gates being asked about this, and I thought this would be a really good opportunity to both look at the video, analyze what he says, but reflect on the first antitrust case against big tech, which was Microsoft, and reflect on that case and what it meant and its significance and what it now means for the industry today. So we are going to do that. If you want to ask a question, don't ask me in the chat because I can't pay attention to chat and everything. Ask me in a super chat. Trevor says a major big tech focus has been innovation, but the rise of diversity departments in tech are continuing to focus on equality of outcome. How do engineers organize and push back without losing their jobs? I think you need to push back. You need to organize the engineers that want to push back. And you need to find channels to communicate in a respectful way your opposition to many of these ideas. And I think there are ways to do it. I don't know that you're going to be successful, but don't make big public statements. Don't push back in public forums. Try to push back within the company and appeal to management, appeal to people higher up, as a group in an organized fashion without starting out with a public appeal or without encouraging a public appeal, and try not to create too much debate within the company and create opposition and enemies within the company. But it's hard for me to give advice because I'm not in the situation you guys are in. So talk to people who are in similar situations and see what they think. Talk maybe to senior manager. Maybe sit down with the senior manager you like and respect and you think will at least hear you out, and ask them what they think the best way for you to engage in these issues should be and could be. That would be my advice. Okay, let's see. Yes, I wanted to go to the Bill Gates video. I think it's there. There's Bill Gates. All right, let's get rid of that obnoxious thing. All right, so this is Bill Gates, I think today, this morning on CNBC, taking a question, and let's listen if we can, if this will let me.
Does scrubbing grease feel like
Sorry.
a workout?
We might have to go through the ad.
Scrub less with Dawn Platinum. It's super.
We can at least not have to listen to the ad while it's going in. It looks like the video again is jittery. I apologize. I don't have a solution for that right now. All right. Stop. On. Let me just do something here again. I'll be right there with you. Okay, that's not it. What's that? Oh, this is screwed up. So I will be right with you one second. I'm trying to get the video better. Not sure if I'll be successful. Come on. Yep, there we go. Do that. Do that. Do that. Yeah, doesn't seem to help. Okay. This is Bill Gates. Hopefully the video will be intelligible enough.
News on Washington targeting the big tech companies and looking to potentially break them up, definitely regulate them more. I wonder if that gives you flashbacks to your own time running Microsoft. And I just, what advice would you give these CEOs who are dealing with this right now?
Well, I think whenever you get to be a super valuable company, affecting the way people communicate and even, political discourse being mediated through your system and, higher percentage of commerce through your system, you're going to expect a lot of government attention.
Now, notice he's not going to be critical of that. You're going to accept a lot of government attention. That, unfortunately, in the world in which we live, that is absolutely true. And he, at least here, I'm sure in private he might say something different, but at least here that's value neutral in his mind, right? It doesn't elicit a condemnation. It doesn't elicit any kind of anger. When he was asked about this, you saw him kind of smile and laugh. You'll see him smile and laugh later on as well. That seems to be a defense mechanism. The whole experience of AntiTrust was not a pleasant experience for Bill Gates at all. It was actually a disaster. I'll read you some quotes about it afterwards. It was a disaster from a PR perspective. It was a disaster, I think, for his legacy. It was a disaster for the company. The whole experience was horrific, but he can't process it really, because as you'll see, he has no principles. He has no moral framework or even political philosophical framework to frame what happened at Microsoft to him. It's just, if you're big, you're going to attract government attention. And it truly is sad, because I have to say that when I watch Bill Gates videos, he strikes me as a nice guy, obviously brilliant, and it would be amazing if somebody as successful as him were principled, took the objectivist ideas seriously. Imagine if that happened. The kind of, what an earth-shattering event that would be. I mean, it would be unbelievable if one of these tech guys turned out to be an objectivist. That would take us forward 20 years in terms of visibility in the culture, in terms of influence in the culture, in terms of importance in the culture. Unfortunately, almost all of them are pragmatists. It's not that they're leftists or on the right. They're just pragmatists, and they don't have a coherent philosophy. Now, Bill Gates is being influenced by some pretty bad philosophy. I think primarily by John Rawls, by kind of an egalitarian philosophy, but he's not an egalitarian. It's not like he believes everybody should be equal in any kind of sense. But there's a drag, a tinge, a pull on him, and you see this in other interviews, of not completely feeling comfortable with the fact that he's as rich and successful as he is, even though I think he thinks he deserves it.
I was naive at Microsoft and didn't really.
Naive. He was naive at Microsoft. He's still naive. And it's not naivete. You know, he was innocent in Microsoft. He was running a company. He was busy running a company. And he says, listen to what he says here.
Realized that our success would lead to government attention. And so I made some mistakes, just saying, hey, I never go to Washington.
He did. He said, I never go to Washington. I'm not interested in Washington. I'm not interested in what Washington has to say. You leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. What's the point of going to Washington? I'm running the largest company in the world, most successful company in the world. Why would I go to Washington? Now, that is a great attitude. That is the right attitude. I wish these executives today would refuse to go to Washington. But he has caved on that attitude. He today regrets that attitude. He's saying that attitude is naive because you know what? When you don't go to Washington, what happens? They come to you. If you don't go and try at least to defend yourself against the gun, what happens? The gun shows up in your house. And this is the whole point when libertarians and others talk about cronyism and the evil of cronyism and these businessmen are all cronies. What choice do they have? What choice do they have? What lesson did they learn from Bill Gates? The lesson they learned from Bill Gates is don't be arrogant. Don't stand up to Washington because he tried. Don't ignore Washington. Indeed, participate in the game. Protect yourself. Defend yourself. Hand out money all over the place. Google, famously, from day one, has been giving contributions to the Republican Party, to Democrats, Republicans, all over the place. Because they understood. They looked at Microsoft. They said, we never want that to happen to us. We need to do more about this. Now, it looks like it's going to happen to them in spite of that. We'll see how it all plays out. And they forgot, I think, to grease the wheels in Europe where they're being harassed. But yeah, it's what are they going to learn from Bill Gates? Play the game. And even Bill Gates has learned from Bill Gates. Play the game. Because for a while he didn't. And he wasn't successful. He lost. Now, you could argue maybe he lost because he wasn't principled enough. But that's a hard argument to make given that the people in Washington have the guns and can force this on you. Trevor asked, does Bill Gates not understand philosophy or is he evil? I don't think he's evil. I don't think you could say he's evil. I mean, I don't think he understands philosophy. I think to the extent that he knows somewhat about philosophy, he's wrong about philosophy. I think he's very confused philosophically. In interviews where he talks about his personal life, I think he's torn between his productiveness and his reason and his rationality and between a sense that he should be altruistic and a sense that that's right, that there's something just about altruism and there's something just about egalitarianism. But he can't actually bring himself to believe that. So no, I don't think he's evil at all. I think he's one of the good guys, but very, very, very confused and wrong. And it's not that everybody who evades, that's immoral. To evade is immoral, but not everybody who evades is evil. And I'm sure Bill Gates evades. I'm sure he read Atlas Shrugged and evaded some of its lessons, as many of these executives have. But would I call him evil? Never. Never. Right. Dragon something or says, I hear socialists say the opposite. They say capitalist class owns the government, not the other way around. I've seen that statement numerous times in socialist groups. Now, if that were true, then there would be no antitrust going after business. Now, there's been less over the last 30 years since Reagan. There's been less antitrust. That's good, but You'd expect there to be zero. You'd expect there to be very little regulations that often harm business. You'd expect. No, I don't see any evidence to suggest that Washington is in the pocket of business. Now, it does. We've created in America, not capitalism. We don't have capitalism anymore, and we don't really have a capitalist class. What we created in America is a mixed economy with a heavy dose of cronyism. So today there is a lot of interface between the business and between government. But the fault is government. The fault is government's ability, the fact that government has a gun, the fact that government doesn't have any fear in pointing that gun, and the need of businessmen to defend themselves. That is, at the end of the day, I think the source of the cronyism. All right. Let's keep going with and now that's a source of it, but it's not the end of it, right? So, for example, Microsoft today joined a lawsuit against Apple, claiming antitrust violations for that gaming company. I forget the name of the gaming company. The gaming company. Here it is. I've got it here. Epic Games. So they joined the Epic Game lawsuit against Apple. So today, once they're beaten down, right? Once they're beaten down, businesses join in, and businesses use the antitrust laws, and businesses use regulation in order to protect themselves. And in that sense, they protect themselves from competition, and I don't think own government is the right way to do, but they have a much, they have a say. And a lot of laws today, a lot of congressmen today are lazy, stupid, don't want to piss anybody off. So what they do is they write bills that are empty, and then the regulatory agencies fill them in. And the regulatory agencies, in order to fill in what the actual regulations will be, Dodd-Frank was like this, actually consult with the industries. The industry sends people to help write the regulations that will regulate it. So it's a complete mess today. It's a complete disaster. But the source of this, and this is really, 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 really important, the source of this is the power we have given government over our lives. The source of this is the power we have given government over business. And you could see it historically. Whenever government has power over a particular industry, that industry becomes enmeshed with government. You get the corruption, you get the lobbying, you get the cronyism, starting with the railroad industry in the 19th century and on. But the blame here is that we've given government too much power. Or you could think of it as government has taken, without our objection, too much power. Somebody said Peikoff didn't think much of a gets. Yeah, I mean, in a sense that he never stood up for himself, in a sense that he never really defended himself on principle. He's always been a pragmatist. And philosophically, obviously, given his success, given his prominence, given his genius or his brilliance, however you want to categorize it, it would have been great if he had. I still have an immense appreciation for him as a businessman. I have an immense appreciation for him as a technologist. And I have an appreciation for him as outside of philosophy, outside of politics, as a thinker. Particularly in technology, business. Whoops. It's going to be interesting if it'll play now. Maybe it won't. Very frustrating that I'm having problems today. It's too early in the day, my computer's saying to do this stuff. I don't know if you can write something on the chat. My Google Chrome right now is not responding, it tells me. So let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Anything? Can you guys, I can't tell if anybody can hear me. I can't tell if anything is going on. All right, we're back. Are we back? No. We still look like we're online. Yes. It's going to be nice to be. It's going to be nice to be home, where my system works all the time, and I don't have this crap happening, and where the internet actually works better than in California, and my computer setup is much better over there than it is over here. But it's frustrating because it's been working fine recently. Now suddenly, Chrome has gone into. It didn't like me trying to play this. Maybe it's Google trying to get revenge on Bill Gates by crippling my ability to play a Bill Gates video. I don't even know if you guys can hear me because I can't. Let me just see something. Let's see if I can do something here. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. I'll be with you in a second. Okay, you can hear me. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna go off of that for now. If the video will work, then we'll go back to it, and I'll just riff. I can see. If you want to do super chat questions, I can actually see super chat questions. I've opened up another computer where I can actually see the chat and see what you are doing, and we'll just talk about it without this. If you send, so ask questions, and we'll keep going as long as you ask questions, I guess. I don't know why that is doing that. All right, we're doing that. We'll close that, and we'll see. We'll see if Chrome wants to work. If it doesn't, we'll just keep going like this. All right. So so Bill Gates goes on to say here that it's inevitable that they're going to go after him, and he's asked, do you think the regulations are good or bad for the business? And he basically doesn't answer that, but he has this smile on his face that basically suggests, well, of course I think it's bad for the industry. Of course I think it's ridiculous. Of course I think it's horrible. But it's inevitable. It's going to happen. You're not going to stop the government from going after these big tech companies, regulating these big tech companies, and creating real havoc here. So, and that's exactly what is going to happen. I mean, Bill Gates, in spite of his unprincipled nature, actually tried to fight the antitrust case in the 1990s. Famously, Bill Gates, fought it in court and treated the whole thing at the time in the 90s as ridiculous. Who would go after me? Why would they go after me? What's the government got to do here at all? Here's the way it was described in an article about this. Right, he says this is about the video deposition. Whoops! Oh wait, I think video is back. Let's just look at the video. Let's see if this will work. All right, here we go.
You see, and now I don't think that naivety is there. These companies have lots of sophisticated advisors, and they've tried to engage in various ways. But there's going to be, the rules will change somewhat. It is kind of poignant that the tech companies have done so well at a time when, things are very tough. And so that's an element of the increased attention.
It would be nice, imagine if he'd said, there's envy because they've done so well, instead of just pointing out the fact that when you do so well, it's going to attract attention and people are going to go after you because you've done so well. He could have just said, it's envy. But sadly, he won't. And then he says, the tech companies are they're not as naive as I was. They're doing a better job. Now, isn't that sad? That today, successful companies have to devote huge amounts of resources because Bill Gates lost in the 90s. He lost his case in the 90s, and I get back to that quote in a minute about him losing. Let's keep listening.
You think additional regulation could be good?
Look at this smile now.
Let's say for America, for consumers overall, or you think it runs the risk of cutting down on innovation?
What is that smile telling you? It's telling you, of course I don't think it's going to be good. Of course I think it's going to be cut down on innovation. Of course I think it's terrible. But he's not going to say that. That's what his face tells us. That's what his smile tells us.
It'll really depend on what they come up with.
Really?
And we have to get.
Here's the pragmatism.
Is there some rule about acquisition? Is there some rule about splitting parts of the companies, either to create open?
Which is what they wanted to do originally with Microsoft, to split up all the companies, his company, and they managed to fight that and get that stopped. They had other problems, but that at least was not done to Microsoft.
And availability of those resources. We're in uncharted territory here. A lot of industries, like the railroad industry or the movie industry, they created special policies that they thought were effective for competition. But this is a new industry with different issues, and so to get it right will take a lot of
that
good
smile
thinking.
To get it right, as if it's possible. A lot of good
I'd
thinking.
say the chances of them doing something is pretty high, and you always have Europe as well as the United States. Often Europe being even more regulatory.
Yep. So you see the pragmatism, but you also see, if he was honest, if he let that smile talk, he thinks it's absurd. And he says, you need a lot of good thinking. Well, first, I don't believe you could have a lot of good thinking. But, who's going to do this good thinking? There's nobody there to do the good thinking. And he doesn't, somebody says he puts money over principle because he thinks it's rational. No, I don't think he puts money above principles. I don't think this is about money at all. I think this is about, I think this is the reality. And he faces that reality and he puts his survival above principle. Look, the more he would have fought, the more principled he would have been, the more likely it is that they would have broken up Microsoft and destroyed him. He didn't do it because of the money. It's about survival. I don't think Bill Gates is an evil socialist. There's nothing about him that's socialist. He's wrong philosophically. He's corrupt philosophically. He's primarily a pragmatist with tinges of, pull by John Rawls like egalitarianism. Trevor Smith asks, if you were put in charge of Gates Foundation, would you disassociate from Africa? Would that not be objectively better for Africans? No, I don't think it would be objectively better for Africans. I'm not sure why it would be objectively better for Africans. I don't think what Bill Gates is doing in Africa is bad for Africans. I just don't think it's that good for Bill Gates. And I don't think it's that good for Africa. I think it's better than zero. But I don't think it's ideal for Africa. What Africa needs are ideas. What Africa needs is a pro-liberty, pro-freedom, pro-capitalist ideology. That's what I would promote in Africa if I was going to go to Africa at all. But it's not about, right? It's not about the damage that that the Gates Foundation is doing in Africa. On the contrary, if you value human life, then Gates Foundation is, I think, doing a lot of good for Africa. Not good that'll change anything fundamentally, but it's saving lives in malaria, it's saved lives in polio, it's saving lives in various diseases. It's doing good. I don't buy any of the conspiracy theories, any of the stuff about all the damage that the Gates Foundation is doing in Africa. I don't think that any of that is real. I think it's just, in a sense, a waste of money. And if they advocated for free markets and capitalism in Africa, that would be a lot better for Africa. If I were put in the... So I would leave Africa, not because it's good or bad for Africans, but because I think there's more important work to do. And the most important work to do is the work to promote capitalism in the world. And in Africa, in the United States, in Europe, everywhere. And that's where I would focus hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's... Imagine how you could change the world if that was your focus. If that was your focus. Gates' awesome productive courage couldn't withstand the establishment's fury for challenging the moral zeitgeist. Andrew writes, only moral principles could provide him with the strength. I agree completely. I mean, this is what this author wrote about that trial. Now, the trial involved 3 days of depositions, where Bill Gates was queried by a lawyer about details of emails he sent, about this, about that, about policies, about all the minutia that is involved in the government's case that claimed that Microsoft was using its so-called monopoly power to restrict competition. He says there's a videotaped deposition of Bill Gates. At its most basic level, the deposition underscored the utter contempt he had for an action he believed infringed on the ability of his company and others to follow, he warned, to design products and conduct business as they saw fit. That's great. If that's what he conveyed, that's great. But he couldn't convey it in principle. He conveyed it in his attitude, and that's what I think you see with Bill Gates. He has an attitude that says, just leave us alone. Just let others do a thing. Of course, regulations will restrict innovation. But he doesn't have the principled, conceptual, philosophical knowledge to say it, and to stand by it, and to defend it, and to fight for it. Emotionally, I think it's there. And maybe at some level cognitively. But he can't fight for it because he's not principled and he doesn't acknowledge principle. He doesn't recognize principle. He won't admit to principle. He says the strategy during the 3-day deposition was classic Microsoft. And this is the pragmatism. Obstruct. Paint the government as out of touch policy wonks who had no idea how tech and real markets worked. That's pragmatism. Now, that's hard to tell if that was Bill Gates' strategy or if it was his lawyer's strategy. That's also, you can't tell from these things, right? And above all, deny even the most basic of the premises in the government's case. The plan from Gates' army of lawyers and PR handlers seemed to be to wield his image as a software wonder kid who dropped out of Harvard to bootstrap his company and went on to become the world's richest man. Team Gates planned to use that same domineering force of will to beat back government lawyers. The problem is that's not the right strategy. The right strategy is principle. But he doesn't have it. So he couldn't fight on that level. And the damage done is huge. The damage done to Microsoft was enormous. For years, Microsoft couldn't innovate, couldn't advance, couldn't really build because it had a government-appointed, a court-appointed bureaucrat sitting at Microsoft's office dictating what they couldn't do, couldn't say, which everybody who worked at Microsoft in those years will tell you. Everything shrunk, the scope of thinking. It's a great illustration of the fact that force restricts thinking. Microsoft, and as soon as the bureaucrat was gone, Microsoft started flourishing again, and today it's a very successful company. But during those years of government oversight, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. Force shrinks thinking. Force restricts. And it's crippling. And it's crippling not only of Microsoft. Because what this does is every company out there has to think that it can become a Microsoft. And therefore, it shrinks the possibilities, it shrinks the competitive things that companies could do. It shrinks the scope of your imagination. And I think we are so much poorer today. As big as the tech progress has been, we are so much poorer today because of what happened at Microsoft. Jerry Morton is making this point on the chat, right? It's shrunk everything. We'd be richer, further ahead. Microsoft would be a more significant player. There'd be probably more competition, not less. And the whole technology world would probably be different and better, and we would all be richer and wealthier as a consequence. And of course, that's Microsoft. Now, if the government goes after Apple and Google and Facebook, and who else are they considering going after? Maybe Microsoft themselves again, then you shrink it again. You eliminate the scope of thought again. And it would be a real disaster. Okay, Andrew asks, Gates awesome productive. Oh, we talked about that. I already quoted Andrew. Let's see. Varun asks, it just shows he is a great entrepreneur, but if you are ignorant on some other dimension, you won't have the spine to stand when pressure is applied. Absolutely. And the challenge is that who has this knowledge? Who has this spine? Who has out there in our business world the ability to really stand up to government on principle over these issues? I don't see anybody. And it's sad. It's sad. I wish, Amazon. I forgot Amazon before as a company that they're going to go after. I mean, I wish Jeff Bezos had it. I wish Tim Cook had it. I wish Steve Jobs had it in the past. But they don't. They don't have the philosophical knowledge and courage and understanding. Many of them are Red Atlas Shrugged. In that sense, you could argue they don't have an excuse. But the reality is that there's not a single prominent, visible business leader in tech that is principled and will stand up to the government on principle. And yet, they're going to be devastated by the government here soon. Is wealth the primary driver of civil engagement, provided you agree that Gates isn't evil and shouldn't disassociate from groups that need help? I don't really understand what that means. Is wealth the primary driver of civic engagement? What does that mean? I don't understand. You're going to have to clarify the question. Somebody says Elon Musk is also pragmatist. Absolutely. I mean, once in a while, he'll say something principled, but it won't stick. It won't stick. Somebody says we need a Preston Tucker, at least the way he was in the movie. Yeah, but Tucker was even the way he's portrayed in the movie, he's too flaky. He's too unserious. He's too naive. Tucker understands and is a great businessman, but he's naive to a point where his naivete is so flawed that it destroys him. And of course, you see in that movie how business and government in coordination destroy a rising competitor. So I definitely recommend the movie Tucker. Even though Tucker's portrayed a bit as a flake, it makes the movie, I guess, entertaining. But I don't know what the reality of it is, and it certainly is a condemnation of this idea of business and government hand in hand. All right, we're going to shift topics here. We're going to go to this question of capitalism killing you. Particularly, is your work killing you, and is you taking your work seriously killing you, which is the argument this video is going to make. We'll see if the video plays. I hope it does. In the meantime, don't forget to like the show before you leave. We've got over 100 people watching and 63 likes, so please like the show. It's very easy to do. On top of that, I'd appreciate it if you could use the super chat to support the show and show your appreciation, value for value. It's the trader principle after all. And we will, and of course you can support the show at yaronbrookshow.com/support, and you can support the show at Patreon and Subscribestar and elsewhere. Don't forget to, I know, but people seem to be leaving as I switch videos. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Again, it's easy and it helps a lot with the algorithms. All right, this is a video making a claim about work that you hear a lot from the left, and you hear it a lot in the culture generally. A certain antagonism, reluctance, just unhappiness, but having to work for a living. If you want to ask a question, don't ask it in the chat. Use the super chat feature to ask the question. Don't ask it in the chat. All right, here we go. We can see it there.
Demonetized almost all of my recent videos. So
that's interesting. He's complaining, by the way, about being demonetized. He's a leftist. It just shows that the whole Prager thing is BS. Leftists complain about being demonetized almost as much as people on the right complain about being demonetized. You be asked if I think YouTube is shadow banning me. I don't know. It's hard to tell. There's probably some impact, but here this guy on the left claims to YouTube's doing the same to him. Hard to tell why viewership of my videos is what it is. I'm not blaming YouTube for it. I'm blaming me, and I'm blaming you guys for not sharing my videos enough. The only way to get viewership and subscriber numbers up significantly on YouTube is to share. And that's something you guys need to do. Now, I could probably improve the shows, but you guys need to drive viewership up by sharing the videos. That's the only way we'll overcome if there is shadow banning, but I'm not convinced there is. There's some content, because YouTube doesn't like certain content, but it's not, it's content that's just controversial in the culture. Here we go.
So if you're able, please consider supporting this channel by becoming a patron.
Don't support that channel. It's a horrible channel.
The less you eat, drink, and buy books, the less you go to the theater, the dance hall, the public house, the less you think, love, theorize, sing, paint, fence, etc., the more you save. The greater becomes your treasure which neither moths nor rust will devour, your capital. The less you are, the less you express your own life, the more you have, i.e., the greater is your alienated life. The greater is the store of your estranged being. Everything which the political economist takes from you in life and in humanity, he replaces for you in money and in wealth.
So the idea here is to create a dichotomy between saving and living, between earning and enjoying life. The idea is that if you work, if you invest in your work, if you save money, that means you don't go to restaurants, you don't date, you don't love, you don't do all the fun stuff like climbing mountains that you should, in some Garden of Eden, be able to do. And that creates what Marx called, and what modern leftists use all the time, alienation. You work to save so you can live well, but because you're constantly chasing the savings, you never will live well. Now, I'll get to why this is so wrong.
All passions and all activity must therefore be submerged in avarice.
All passions and all activity, right? So all of you out there who are working for a living, you must sacrifice. You must have sacrificed all your passions for the sake of money. Money. That's the only thing that's important to you.
Worker may only have enough for him to want to live, and may only want to live in order to have that. These words, penned by Karl Marx in 1844,
I told you it's Karl. I didn't even know that, but it's Karl Marx. Alienation, all Karl Marx. This is the root of this idea of alienation, that the worker is alienated from life is dissatisfied and therefore will revolt ultimately.
Are no less true today than they were 170 years ago, and nowhere on Earth do they ring more true than in the United States. As the wealthiest nation on Earth, the US enjoys the privilege of looking down on the rest of the world as, quote, less successful, our people basking in the light of glorious American exceptionalism. What we fail to realize is that our concept of success is not only narrow and short-sighted, but also fundamentally opposed to human flourishing.
Really?
Our population as a whole may enjoy more wealth than some of our peer nations, but at what cost? Our waking hours are consumed by work, our life expectancy is on the decline, we rate poorly in metrics like happiness and job satisfaction, and those of us in the workforce today will never achieve the financial stability of our parents' generation.
Maybe that's because we are taught that work is a burden, work is alienating, work is, by the left, teaches us that work is almost slavery, that work is a horrible thing, that if only we could have all the goodies we wanted, if only we could do everything we felt like doing without work. Now, note the difference here. They're making an argument that work is opposed to living. The work is opposed to value. Work is opposed to virtue. Work is opposed to happiness. Now, you could maybe, I think it's insane, but maybe make a case during Marx's era when most work was drudgery. Most work was in the factory. Most work sucked. But even then, it was a lot better than subsistence farming. Because before, quote, work, what did we all do? We were very good at dying. Many of us died before the age of 10. If we survived, we worked from sunrise to sunset just to feed ourselves. No surplus, no hiking, no going up mountains, no vacation, nothing. Just work with no fun. Just work to survive. Nothing beyond that. So working for these people is, working maybe for Marx could be perceived as a challenge, could be perceived as something negative, could be perceived as hard and drudgery. But today, when we're as rich as we are, when you have real choices when you grow up, when so many young people go study, critical race theory, feminist studies, whatever, all kinds of ridiculous topics for fun because they have no application in the real world and they have no application for work. Somebody's asking who the narrator is. Let me just scroll down here and I'll tell you. It's The Second Thought. It's a channel that has 922,000 subscribers. I don't know who they are. Some leftist organizations. 922,000 subscribers. I have 22,000. That's the world in which we live. 22 for me, 922 for the leftist nuts. Think about the world today in which we can choose our profession, choose what we study. We make so much money that we live in big, beautiful homes. We drive magnificent cars. We go on lengthy vacations. We save money, which we use later on. The whole perspective here is of work as drudgery, work as force, work as coercion, work as exploitation. Think about the attitude Objectivism has. The Objectivist approach is that being productive is a primary virtue. It's the source of much of our self-esteem and ultimately a source of much of our happiness. For an Objectivist, work is not drudgery. Work is not coerced. Work is the source of his life. It's not just an end to something. I'll have money so I can eat. I'll have money so I can go on vacation. It is an end in itself because it is enjoyable in itself. And if it's not, switch careers. If it's not, move companies. If it's not, make it so. People are not happy today. They're not happy at work today. Suicide rates in America, drug use rates in America are really high. Not because of the quality of the work that they have, but the quality of their values, the quality of their virtues. They don't take personal responsibility over their own life, over their own survival, over the quality of their own life, over the quality of their own job, of their own work, or what they should be pursuing, which is their own career. And their own career is taking their job, their work, their study, their schooling seriously. And therefore challenging themselves. And therefore enjoying it. And therefore gaining the self-esteem that comes from achieving one's goals. So the whole Marxist premise here is that productiveness is not a virtue. That productiveness sucks. That it is a burden. That if only human beings could not have to be productive. The whole premise of Marxism and the whole premise of this modern left is that wealth, in all its forms, just drops like manna from heaven. It's just there. It just gets created without anybody having any effort, without anybody exerting anything. And then it's just a question of how do we redistribute it? How do we distribute it, not redistribute it? How do we figure out who should get what? But it's just there. And God, how dare you, given that it's just there, how dare I have to go to work? If I didn't go to work, it still would be there. The work doesn't create anything. It is so, the whole Marxist thread is so anti-reality, anti-fact. Everything we have has to be created. Everything created starts with an idea, then with an entrepreneur, then with a capitalist. Then, and only then, does labor enter the picture. And it does what the entrepreneur tells it to do. And it produces and creates stuff, and hopefully labor is in a job they enjoy, that is a challenge, that pushes them, that allows them to grow. Thank you, Troy. I really appreciate it. On top of all the rest of your support. It's amazing. But no, for them, labor is in this paradise where they're having a good time. They're partying. They're climbing mountains. They're doing great stuff. And then this evil capitalist and these evil entrepreneurs force them into the factory, force them to program, force them to do this work. And then all the wealth, all the benefits of this work go to the entrepreneur and to the capitalist. So they're basically slave labor, held down and denied this utopia that they came from. But that's completely upside down. All of it is upside down. There is no wealth without the capitalist entrepreneur. There are no jobs without the capitalist and entrepreneur. And without jobs, the workers would literally starve or go back to subsistence farming. But the fact is, subsistence farming cannot sustain 8 billion people on planet Earth. So the alienation doesn't come from the work. The alienation comes from the preaching, from them taking seriously all the preaching about how they shouldn't have to work, about how vacations are more important than work, how work is misery, about how exploited they're being. That's where the alienation comes from. It's from the propaganda, which unfortunately, sadly, people today are buying into. But the fact is, to be ambitious, including, by the way, to save, but not to save everything. We talked about this on the show. You don't want to save everything. You want to enjoy life. It's not like I'll work really hard today and one day I'll enjoy it. No, while you're working hard, you also want to enjoy it. You shouldn't save to excess. There is such a thing as saving to excess. All right, let's do a few of these super chat questions. We'll see then if we continue the video. I'm happy with my job, and I think most citizens in the USA are successful and prosperous. However, I can't stand the U.S. federal government. Do you think this is a strange contradiction? Loving my life but hating the government? Not at all. I think you love your life, which is great, in spite of the fact that the government is trying to prevent you from loving your life. They take half your income. They regulate your business. They make it difficult for you to have options in terms of jobs because of the labor laws. Government is a burden when it shouldn't be. Government should be there to protect your rights. In other words, the only role of government is to protect your freedoms. So, freedom for what do you need freedom for? Why does anybody need freedom? What the hell? You need freedom so that you can pursue the values necessary for you to have a wonderful life. The point of living is to have a great life. The point of living is to be happy. And the government's job is to take away coercion, to take away force, so that you can have the best shot at happiness. Instead, the government wants to promote its version of happiness, its version of values. It wants to tell you what you can and cannot do, how much of your money you should keep. It wants to redistribute your wealth and regulate your business and control you. So yes, you should hate your government, not just the federal government, your local government, your state government. They're all in it together. And they're all obstructing your freedoms. And you're all limiting your ability to love your life, your ability to pursue values, your ability to be successful in your life. Eric asks, isn't his a logical consequence of the doctrine of a hungry man isn't free? We need money for food, so when the man makes us work to get money, the man enslaves us from our need for food. Yes. But the fact is, we need freedom so that we can make our food. Not a hungry man isn't free. A hungry man doesn't stay hungry if he's free. Because a hungry man produces so that he can eat. But the whole attitude is an attitude of entitlement. I am entitled for food. I'm entitled to other people to provide for me. This is the core of altruism. Other people, if I have a need for food, for work, for money, for vacation, for climbing a mountain, it's other people's moral responsibility to take care of me, to provide those things for me, to make sure I have those things. And that's at the core of socialism, welfare state, all the redistributive policies that exist out there. That's at the core of them. That's at the heart of it. So, absolutely, this idea of a hungry man isn't free is, of course, a complete negation of what freedom means. Freedom means not that you get stuff for free. Freedom means that the absence of coercion. Freedom means the environment in which you are free to pursue your values. And one of those values, by the way, is food. Free of coercion, free of force. Yeah, Jennifer reminds us of in the old, I think this is the old Twilight Zone, which were very philosophical and very clever. I think this is from the 60s and 70s. Ayn Rand really liked this show. There was an episode where the man got whatever he wanted with no effort, and he went insane. But that's the utopia that Marx imagines. That, by the way, is the Garden of Eden. And that is why I often say that Marx's inspiration is religion. He takes Christian morality and, in a sense, Jewish mythology, the Garden of Eden. Christian morality is altruism, which he builds his whole theory. And the end game, the utopia, is the Garden of Eden. Food is just there. Any value you want is just there. You don't have to do any work. And indeed, when God kicks Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, what is it that he burdens them with? He burdens them with the need to work in order to feed themselves. And that's the beginning of work as a burden. That's the beginning of work as exploitation. If you set yourself up as the standard, the Garden of Eden, then everything else is hard. Everything else is a burden. Everything else is less. And that religion does, and Marx capitalizes on that. And of course, the left that claims to be secular adopts this really religious premise that the Garden of Eden, i.e. utopia, is a place where you have to do no work. But we, as objectivists, are focused on reality, on human nature, on the world as it is, not as fantasy would have it. And the world as it is requires humans to work in order to have food, to work in order to have anything, and need to work in order to have even the slightest sense of self-esteem, because you need to know that you can materially take care of yourself. I'm going to do a show soon on productiveness as a virtue, and we'll talk more about this, and I'll repeat some of what I'm saying here. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Peterson, somebody mentioned Jordan Peterson has this complete opposite view of the Bible, complete opposite view of Garden of Eden. But he's wrong. Once you set up the Garden of Eden as your ideal, then Marx, that's what Marx does. That's what Marx does. Right? So, yeah, I mean, I would love to talk to Jordan Peterson about his biblical stories lectures, because I disagree with him about Adam and Eve. I disagree with him about Abraham and Jacob, Abraham's sacrifice of Jacob. All of that. He is absolutely distorting and perverting the actual story in order to fit the story he wants to tell you. All right. I mean, the Garden of Eden is one of the most destructive stories you could imagine in terms of human psychology, human motivation. So, and again, it's what Marx leverages. All right, we'll do a little bit more of this video, and then we'll call it a day.
In this episode, we're going to attempt to divorce the notion of success from the dogged pursuit of the accumulation of capital. Let's start with the core belief that animates many American workers, the idea of the American dream. A sort of national ethos, the philosophy of the American dream can be summed up something like this. Everyone has the opportunity for prosperity and success, regardless of their background and based solely upon their ability or achievement. It's very much a pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. A phrase.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. One of the greatness of America is the idea of personal responsibility, of the ability to bootstrap yourself, the ability to succeed, the ability to better yourself. Better yourself materially, absolutely. But as a consequence of bettering yourself materially, you have opportunities open up to better yourself in every other aspect, educationally, spiritually, artistically, human relationship-wise. The point about Jordan Peterson's stories is not that they're not capitalistic, that it's capitalistic. It's the fact that Abraham's story is not about sacrifice for greater life. It's about blind obedience. It's about blind obedience to a greater power. The problem is that Jordan Peterson wants to believe that Abrahamic story is pro-capitalist, and he distorts it and perverts it. But that's not the message of Abraham's decision, of that story. It's the exact opposite. Abraham's story is about authoritarianism. It's about the virtue of authoritarianism and the importance of authoritarianism. All right. So notice how they view a cynicism, the American
which is
dream.
also very common in American life. The idea that one should be able to succeed without any external help, solely through one's own force of will and hard work.
Yeah.
This notion is, of course, absurd, and is made even more ridiculous by the fact that the phrase has been adopted by so many in a manner completely opposite to its original meaning. To pull yourself up by your own bootstraps is obviously impossible, and that was the original meaning of the phrase.
Yeah, but of course, nobody thinks that you can succeed without interacting with other people. It's a straw man they create, as if individualism is being on a desert island. Well, of course it's not. Of course you trade with other people in order to improve yourself. But that's the American dream. The American dream is improving yourself not by exploiting other people, but by trading with other people. The American dream is about self-improvement. It's about taking responsibility for self. That doesn't mean isolation. That doesn't mean, he's right, booting yourself by your own bootstraps, right? Because you can't. It means doing the best that you can, trading with other people, benefiting from the world in which you live to the best of your ability. But that requires choice, thought, effort.
To attempt something that is completely absurd. Of course, in America, nothing is impossible, so we refitted the expression to better suit our dogmatic obsession with self-reliance. America is an interesting case study, because unlike many other countries, when settlers first arrived here, there seemed to be an endless expanse of land to explore and claim. This frontier lifestyle gave birth to the restless nature of the American dream. One governor noted in 1774 that the Americans forever imagine the lands further off are still better than those upon which they are already settled. He added that, if they attained paradise, they would move on if they heard of a better place farther west. This sums up the American relationship to work pretty well.
Yeah, and what's wrong with that? Why is that a negative? Let me quickly do a couple of super chat questions here, and then we'll see. I'm reading Matt Ridley's book. The innovation that went into increasing crop yields to feed billions is astounding. Yes. It's called the Green Revolution. I mean, the real Green Revolution, not the kind of Green New Deal we're talking about. To leftist food, yeah, I mean, that feeds billions. And that was an amazing innovation that a lot of people against because it used science and technology, but it changed the environment. Andrew asked, have you analyzed nation happiness studies? I've looked into it a little bit. The work I've looked into, I'm not impressed. These happiness surveys are weird and biased, and they're based on theories of happiness that I don't think are true, that are distorted. And then there's, of course, they ignore kind of cultural issues. For example, in Scandinavia, you're expected to be happy, so people say they're happy because that's the expectation, is that they are happy. Other cultures, you're not expected to be happy, and to say you're happy is arrogant and offensive. The studies are very, very poorly done from everything I've seen. Right? Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an expert in these kind of studies, but even to me, who knows a little bit about statistics and a little bit about happiness, they don't make any sense. All right, I wanted to comment one more thing about Jordan Peterson, just because this came up. Spoon says, okay, but that is your interpretation. If someone's listened to his perception, they are going to take that out of it and preach that. Why is that bad? It's bad because it's detached from reality. It's bad because nobody else has that interpretation of the story. It's bad because that's not what the story is. So what happens is that they associate sacrifice, authoritarianism, with capitalism because they're not going to buy into Jordan Peterson's story, not ultimately because it's not there. He has to massage it. He has to distort it and pervert it in order to do it. You can't, and plus, his whole use of the term sacrifice is wrong because he uses sacrifice in that context as investment. But there's no investment there. There is truly a sacrifice, and willing to sacrifice this value, your only son. For what? For what? What is the better life that you're going to get? All there is you're willing to sacrifice your only son based on the authority of a god. That's not a justification for capitalism. There cannot be a justification for capitalism. It's a perversion and distortion, and nobody can hold this sophisticated perversion and distortion of Jordan Peterson. This is why defending capitalism has to be done right. Not every defense of capitalism is good. Most defenses of capitalism actually undercut the cause. Most defenses of capitalism actually make our job much, much more difficult. Because not only now do we have to undo everything the Marxists say about capitalism, now we have to fight everything that the so-called pro-capitalist side has to say about capitalism in terms of its morality or its philosophical, its intellectual basis. Jordan Peterson does us no favors by defending capitalism. And indeed, I doubt he's converted many people to capitalism. Maybe he's converted people to some form of conservatism, some form of Trumpism. Who knows? But to capitalism, yeah, I'm skeptical. Skeptical. Somebody says, do you know any Christians in the West who preach socialism? Yeah, lots of them. Lots of them. A significant number of Christians in America preach some form of socialism. I'd say most right-wing Christians are not opposed to teachings of socialism, like they're not opposed to Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and the hallmarks of socialism in America today. And in Europe, in South America, in much of the world, Christians are leftists because Christianity is dominantly a socialist philosophy. The Sermon on the Mount is mostly socialist. Now, you can distort it and pervert it and be picky and choose what you want in order to find capitalism there, but it's not how most people understand it. You just read the Pope. The Pope is like the biggest socialist on the planet right now. Just read his latest encyclical against capitalism in a time of COVID. Now, you might not consider Catholics Christian, but I do. They're all Christians, Catholics, Protestants, all of them. And from my perspective, not a single one of them is a capitalist. I mean, there's some, a few, that get capitalism, very few. But most Christians are statists. They might be less statist or socialist, but some. It's an issue of degree, and they're not all the way there. But it's not like past popes were pro-capitalist. What pope was pro-capitalist? Some of them begrudgingly gave capitalism a wink and said, okay. If you've never met a single Christian in your entire life that's advocated socialism, you live in a bubble. You live in a bubble, my friend, and if you live in a very small bubble, and if you think the Christians who say they hate socialism don't advocate for socialist policies like Medicare and Medicaid, then you're completely detached from reality. Because of course they advocate for that. They advocate for socialist policies all the time, even as they say they're against socialism. Reminds me of the Tea Party. There used to be these Tea Party demonstrations. Yeah, we want to limit government and bring back the Constitution and all that. And then you'd see a big sign saying, keep your hands off of my Medicare, right? Yeah, cut everybody else's welfare, but don't cut my welfare. Don't cut my welfare. Yeah, so no, there's no capitalism in Christianity, and there are very few Christians who are actual capitalists. They might not be out-and-out socialists, although many of them are. Again, the Pope is a socialist. All you have to do is read about him, spoon. Maybe you should get out of your bubble sometime. And most Christians in Europe are socialists. A huge percentage of American Christians are on the left, maybe not out-and-out socialists, but on the left. But even the ones on the right advocate for socialist policies of various types. So this idea that Christianity is going to save us from socialism is nuts. Socialism is built on Christian premises. All right, we're done here. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Troy, thank you for all the rest of you. Super chatters, really appreciate it. If you want to support the Yaron Brook Show, you can do it by, first of all, liking the show right now. We've got 115 watching and only 92 likes. So I'd appreciate if that got up to over 100 before you leave. And don't forget to share the show. That's the way we grow. No other way to grow. And don't forget to support us on YaronBrookShow.com/support. Really appreciate it, particularly in an era where, very, very little opportunity to go out and speak and get paid for it. Yeah, Jonathan. You gotta put the bucks on the super chat there to get my attention. Somehow Jonathan manages to get my attention no matter what he does, no matter what amount of money he puts on there. Thanks for watching, Jonathan, and thanks for everything that you do. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, support the show, Patreon, Subscribe Star, all of that stuff. Thank you for the super chatters. You can applaud now the show. If you watch it and you're watching it not live, you can applaud it and put some money on the applause. So you can super chat even while not being live on the show. Don't forget to like. Yeah, we're at 98. Get that up to 100. All right, guys. I'll see you on Saturday. We'll do a show on Saturday, Sunday. I'm traveling tomorrow and Friday. And after that, the next show after Sunday is going to be on Thursday from Puerto Rico. I'm taking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to get ready to travel and do all that stuff. And then I'll be in Puerto Rico. Have fewer computer problems, I'm sure, over there. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. See you. Jonathan's getting more and more generous. The more we stick, the more I hang on here. Maybe if I stay for 3 hours, we'll get it up to 20. Thanks, everybody. Keep up the fight. Don't let the bad guys get to you.